penero for OBS on Twitch.
Oh! Hey, fam.
Tweaked all the lights, can't catch my drift. Walking the tightrope, ripping on this. Tortured souls can lift the love we hold. Live, love, learn, let's go. Immaculate when you shake those hips around in circles. I'm getting up on it, heads down, heart skipped, count it off. Persuade me on a Friday night. Immaculate when you shake those hips around in circles. I'm getting up on it. Heads down, heart skip, count it off. Emancipate. This is not debate. We don't have to wait. No, we don't have to wait. We don't have to wait. We don't have to
That was Adam and the Volumes, and today I have with me, I'm on the wrong scene, hold on a second, screw up already.
No worries.
Here we go. I have with me Michael Grundy, the drummer and producer of most of the Adam and the Volumes work, as well as owner of Lightfoot Studios. And
Actually, bass player for Adam and the Volumes
well, there
these
you go.
days.
These days, yeah. We were just talking about that. I should be slapping myself for that. Also, no Pussyfooting. Do you drum for them, or you drum for them,
I
right?
play bass and no Pussyfooting.
Oh, shit. My bad. Wow. There we go.
I was a bass player long before I ever played drums, and playing with Adam and the Volumes was kind of one of those, like, you know, me and Mark were talking about forming an indie rock band, and I could play some indie rock drums.
That was neat. Like, I mean, when I remember finding you guys, it was Mark that we ran into at Cops Records. And we were just sort of like, oh, okay, this guy's putting up posters with his band. But then we went to the next record store, and he was there, too. And he was promoting this show that you guys were doing. I can't remember which one it was, but I still have the poster around somewhere. Actually, you know what? Actually, just because it's within reach. This is what I call my rock box. right here, I pasted a bunch of shit all over it, different bands and
Oh
stuff that I
yeah.
like. Right on the front, right here. I don't know if it's probably backwards for you there, but you, Adam and the
See that?
Volumes. That's the first show poster that Mark gave me. I
Oh
put
shit.
that right there. And the Smiths are right below it. Ozzy Osbourne's right above it.
So I've been packing up my house lately because I'm moving both my house and my studio.
Yeah, I
And
remember that.
yeah. So I've still got that poster from that show too.
Yeah?
I can't remember which show it was, but I 100% know I piled up like a stack of those posters in a box
Yeah, I
somewhere.
definitely keep a lot of show posters around, and I probably could use more space than show posters, but they're good memorabilia for me. I mean, I like them. The artwork of them specifically, exclusively, you know, you only get that for that one show. You'll never see
Yeah.
that artwork again unless you're looking at an old poster of it or somebody's reusing it for some reason. So, I mean, as far as art goes, each show poster is individually unique. I mean, I know
I
some
wish I had
bands,
kept more of that kind of stuff.
some bands do like bigger bands do like these very artsy ones. Actually, I have a couple of City and Color ones that were very exclusive ones, but
You know, we did a series of posters that we got an artist to design for us,
that's right.
and
Those
they were like in a
comic book style, right?
yeah, yeah. And each was a different one, and they were sequential issues.
Yeah, I remember that. 'Cause I think I went to a couple of the shows for those specific ones. Like it was the Peacock. I think was
There were quite a few of them.
one of the first shows that I saw you guys at was the Peacock, and then there was the boat.
It was for like CMW or one of those ones.
Yeah, it was one of those older ones, Canadian Music Week and stuff. Um,
Yeah.
those were good times, man.
Oh fuck yeah, great times.
So,
Canadian Music Week. That was that. Eh?
what year was that? I don't even remember. 2009 or 10? It was a while back.
I'm not sure. We played a couple of them. You know, we played Canadian Music Week, Indie Music Week, all that kind of stuff. For a couple of years, we were playing like all that.
Yeah, you guys were active when I like really active when I was into you. Like when I first got into you, you guys were playing a lot of shows. I was actually
Yeah,
probably one of your biggest fans
there
at
was
the
a
time.
time. Oh, by far, you were our biggest fan that none of us were sleeping with. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, I wasn't a groupie, but I was definitely on the sidelines at all times. Anytime I could be there,
Well, and
I
you
was
were
there.
you were at more shows than some of our girlfriends. Is kind of what I'm trying to say.
Oh, okay. Makes sense. Me and Brandon would always try to make it down there if we could.
Well, shit, it was great seeing you guys. You know, with everything that's going on, it's really hard not being able to go out to shows and hang out with people.
Yeah,
It's weird.
I really miss that. To be fair, I mean, there was a lot of anxiety for me when I go out to shows. I don't know what it is. Like, I mean, I know that I'm going to the show. I know that I'm going to see friends and people that I know, and I know that I'm going to listen to great music. I don't drink. Maybe it's the atmosphere that makes me feel uneasy or whatever. But when I go to like a bar specifically to see a band play, by the end of the night, I'm feeling like maybe I should go home before anything gets too out of hand. And it's not because I think that anything's going to get out of hand or that I'm going to make anything get out of hand. But I just feel like I'm not supposed to be there or something. Weird.
I mean, if anyone's supposed to be there, Vallo Infinity. Come on.
Come on. I mean, maybe. But I mean, I've been to a couple shows where like people have like dedicated songs to me and stuff like that. So I mean, it's fair to say that when I'm a fan of a band, I'm there and I'm always
For sure.
supporting.
But listen, I can relate to the anxiety thing. To tell you the truth, I have a lot of those same issues. I always found it a lot easier to get on stage and perform than spend the rest of the night hanging out in the bar.
Yeah.
But in various periods, there were some points where the bar was my favorite place to be, and it was my refuge, and other places where I felt sort of alienated from the whole sort of situation. Not by anybody other than myself, but
Yeah, I
in a
get that.
strange bar where you don't know anybody.
I feel like that's
Yeah,
part of it too. Is when I go, I'm going to Toronto, right? It's outside of my city, outside of the people that I know, outside of like anything else. It's one of the reasons why when I go to a show, I try to invite a friend to come along with me, so I at least have, while while I'm going to usually see some of my friends in a band perform, um, I like having company in the audience with me also because it just makes me feel more like I'm okay being there because I know this person next to me, and even though I don't know the other people, the hundred people around me, I know this other person next to me.
totally.
Somebody's got your back at least. You
Yeah.
know. So
So, there have been some times where, oh,
go ahead.
enough of the bar. Let's.
But I feel like when I don't really consider myself much of a musician, but I do like work on music and stuff. I have been working on a couple things lately with a couple of actual musicians. So it's I mean I've made it a point to sort of better myself where I can, and I mean you're not gonna get better by not doing, so do something, better than
Well, and
sitting on your ass, right?
one of the beautiful things about music and art in general is if you're a creator, if you have that creative spirit, which if you're undertaking, creating music, you clearly have, then it isn't really about technical skill. Like you look at punk rock as the classic example, but hip hop as well. There are so many great musicians who weren't technically great musicians. I saw a really interesting interview online about Steve Vai talking about how awesome Kurt Cobain and Billy Joe Armstrong are as guitar players. And he was saying, it really isn't about that technical skill for them. They've just got this determination to do it and to, make their art, create their music.
I feel like when I fall into a flow, I got like I'm not, I haven't like memorized my scales yet. So when I fall into a flow, it's more of a slow Pink Floydish sort of vibe. So I kind of get that kind of mood going, and I turn on the delay for my pedal and stuff like that, and see what I can come up with. Usually I'm just messing around with loops and stuff like that, but
Yeah.
it's creativity. And although sometimes last night I sort of turned it on, and then I got turned off by it real quick. It's a flick of the switch, It's a matter of whether you're feeling it or not. And last night
Totally.
was feeling it for a long while. For the day I was playing my guitar in the afternoon, and I was like, I should do a music stream later. Turn my stuff on, and I just wasn't feeling it at all. So I got a groove going, and then I realized that I had technical. I don't know if you've ever been in the studio and you've realized, fuck, that's not on. Fuck, it's not on.
Oh, yeah.
That happened to me last night. So it kind of pissed me off, and then I realized that I ran into another technical difficulty with my pedal. I started getting a bunch of feedback, and I was like, well, when you're broadcasting live on a platform and you start getting a bunch of feedback, I think that's time to chop the block there.
Yeah.
So, but the creative flow, it comes and goes, and as it is, I have, I don't know if you've been here, you've played on the drums. I have a bass. I have multiple guitars and stuff. I'm not moving the
Beautiful
camera. That's
guitars.
actually broadcasting. But if anybody wants to see my guitars, they can scroll down below and see my guitars on my Twitch channel. But yeah, I mean, it feels to me like I don't know. I've never been with a band, so I don't have that. What do they call it? The spark or whatever, that you just get together and you all write something that, you know, and it just comes out of nowhere, and as a band you just felt it all together or whatever. But in the moment of creativity, I sometimes feel what I could relate to that as this. I don't know. Like I said, I don't really call myself a musician or an artist, but I feel like a spark or like a tingle, and that's what gets me sort of feeling the flow. I don't know. It's just a thing that gets to me sometimes when I think about how I come up with this music and stuff.
Yeah, man,
Do you
for
get anything
sure.
like that? Like when you're with the guys or whatever?
Oh, totally, totally. And there are periods where it's just not flowing, and then there's some times where we get together and it just clicks, and it's like magic. It's effortless. You know, it's funny. Like it's you try to figure out what the recipe is for it. Like maybe it's just that we're all on the same page in our this point in our lives, or maybe it's this moment or this or that. But it's magic.
I like the word magic, but I feel like a lot of things in people's lives, like I mean events, not necessarily what's going on in the world, but like the time that you spend with your family, or the amount of time you spend thinking about yourself or being good to yourself, that sort of reflects back on how you feel about, you know, what you're feeling.
Oh yeah.
And then that helps
I
you
mean,
express it through your creativity. When you're an artist and stuff, I feel like the more time you take to yourself and the more time you sort of have to think about it, like, not, I don't know. I was going to say life, but I don't mean life in general. But I don't know, meditation kind of,
I feel you. I feel you.
like
I
the
mean,
conscious
one of
self. You know what I mean?
totally, totally. Well, they say there's a difference between your conscious self and your subconscious self. Your conscious self is this layer that you've created over top of the rest. And sometimes tapping into that musical spark is creating a connection between the two, drawing what's in your subconscious up into your consciousness. And music is one of those ways that we're able to do that. It communicates on a different level and allows us to access that other dimension of our personalities.
And see, that's something that's interesting to me. Even that you would bring that up, like another dimension that is what our personalities are. Because I feel like defining a human being as something requires another element of understanding, such as its own dimension. The, like I think I had mentioned when we did pre-pro on Monday that lately I've been sort of reflecting on the sort of, I guess it's a figure of speech that, once you're gone, things go on without you or whatever. Things carry on with or without you, right? And
Yeah.
I've heard that saying so many times before, but only recently did I put it into perspective of the fact that you eventually you're not going to exist, and that's the kind of assumption that you make from that. But to not exist means that you also at one time already didn't exist because you exist now. And to exist means that you haven't existed also in the past. So that means your consciousness is off somewhere else. And when it
See, for me, one of the big questions of all of this reincarnation stuff is whether or not consciousness moves forward after our physical bodies in this form decay? Or are we sort of selfish like that? Because in a way, we've always been here. You know, the all matter is created out of energy. Energy isn't destroyed, it's just redistributed.
Right.
So there's this very human perspective based on our sensory experience of the world around us that, you know, we are here in the now and we will one day be gone. But we will never be gone. Everything that makes up Valo will always be here. It just won't always be in that same configuration. But I mean, shit, tomorrow your hair is going to be longer. You know, you're going to be one day older. All of your skin cells will have shed. Your body 2 weeks from now is not much of the same body it was.
That's an interesting thought. Never, I can't say I've never thought of it that way because I think I have thought of it that way a couple times before. But yeah, no, I mean, like my fingernails will be growing a little bit by tomorrow morning. That will make me a different person than I am now.
Yeah.
I feel like that's what I was kind of getting to, is like knowing those kinds of things about yourself and understanding that kind of helps you tap into that creative flow a little easier than it would have if you're unaware of that fact. If you're unaware of yourself, rather. You get what I mean by that?
Yeah, totally. Self-awareness is very important. And I think, you know, music sort of makes you be somewhat self-aware. You have to be thinking about what you're doing. You know, sometimes you'll do things that are coming from a flow state, but it's informed by your experiences and all of this.
Definitely. I mean, I think that, like, I met Johnny Marr a while ago, this cat on my shirt from the UK, from the Smiths. You know, I was staying at your house one of the times when I went to see him. But before that, it was in 2016 that I met him, and I wondered after meeting him if by meeting him I would anyway influence his future writing process. Not necessarily his writing process, but like when I saw him in 2016, he had an album out called The Messenger, and it was his first solo album. And at this point in time, he's released 2 other albums since then. I'm not saying I wouldn't expect him to write that music, but would 1 or 2 of the words in 1 or 2 of the songs not have came to him if he hadn't met me, if his interaction with me was different, or if he didn't like me as opposed to actually liking me, you know? And not
It's the butterfly effect,
just
right?
not necessarily just me. It could be somebody else as well, right? But like,
Yeah.
I was bringing that up because in that instance, I happen to think, you know, I wonder if me meeting him will have any effect on anything he writes in the future, you know?
Totally.
And
Well,
I feel
you've
like
heard of the butterfly effect, right?
yeah, like
Yeah, it's that. It might not be a particularly, you know, large meeting, but inevitably every experience he lives is going to affect the experiences that follow. And you never know. I mean, sometimes more profoundly than you'd expect.
yeah,
Like he might end up singing about somebody who loves his music and be reflecting on that day when he saw this guy walk up to him in line and say hi and introduce himself.
and I don't even mean necessarily something like that. I mean like completely outside of like the topic even at hand. Like I mean for instance, the album he released most recently was called Call the Comet. And it's a line from one of the tracks. And, you know, just if that doesn't have anything necessarily to do with meeting any fan or anything like that. And I'm not saying that it does or it doesn't because I don't know the meaning to that song necessarily. But um, whether or not he would have decided to put, call the comet or call a comet or something like that, just two different iterations or whatever, like just if he would have chose a different iteration of it if he hadn't met me or whatever. Anyway, I'm pandering on about that a little bit much.
No problem.
Um, so what instruments do you play altogether? Like, you play guitar, you play bass.
I play guitar, bass. I play the drums, and I can play a little bit of keys. Like, I probably shouldn't say I can play keys. I can arrange stuff using a keyboard.
So like, I mean, yeah, you basically said arrangements and stuff like that. Basically, I was gonna say so like arrangements, right?
Yeah, like I can say, for instance, I made a piece of music for an app that was a word game app called Wordworthy. And they told me, this is a word game app. Our target market is women sort of 30 and up. So I decided to go for something kind of light and poppy, give it a bit of a Latin feel. I threw down some piano bits that I basically just, decided on a chord progression and then turned that into MIDI chords with a keyboard. Really fumbled my way around it and had to kind of rearrange everything in the software and such.
Interesting.
But at the end, it turned out good.
Yeah. I've been working with a drum pad machine recently just to get some loops going that I've been playing over top of and stuff. And I've been feeling okay about it, but limited, I don't have this kit. I don't know how to use. I don't know how to use it. I need a real drummer here. But I've been.
I mean, at the same time, though, so much great music from the past 30 years. The rhythm section was created by someone who wasn't a drummer.
I think
electronic music.
Yeah, they said the
White Stripes.
John Lennon used to say that the best drummer in the Beatles wasn't even Ringo Starr. It was actually Paul McCartney. So that's a good one.
Yeah, I mean, McCartney apparently is a good drummer. That guy is an all-around incredible.
Yeah, I admire McCartney for sure. I feel like solo he could have been bigger than the Beatles, but just never wanted to.
I think he kind of was.
I mean, Wings, yeah, kind of, yeah.
I mean, the
wish it was
Beatles,
for that.
because of like the economy of music and the way the music industry was at the time, the Beatles were able to become what they were. Like there weren't as many acts out. It was a big time of cultural transition. Nowadays, there's so much saturation. Yeah, you've got guys like Drake, but it's not the same sort of success.
Yeah, and I don't feel like it could be the same success because, like you're saying, saturation. There's too many people listening to too much different stuff now, so everybody likes a different thing. And like back in the early days, the 60s and 70s and stuff, you didn't have a lot to listen to, and what was on the radio was what you had to listen to. And if the Beatles were in the top 10 with 5 different songs, then you were listening to 5 different Beatles songs in the hour, because that was what was on the radio, because they were going to play the top 10. So
exactly,
you didn't have a lot of choice.
And you think about like rock and roll and the cultural institution that rock and roll was, in part because like, well, shit, you're gonna throw on a polka record,
right? What else are you gonna listen to?
And yeah, like Motown and stuff, the weird racial dynamics of the time, like everybody loves fucking Motown. I'm sure everybody loved it back then too.
Yeah.
And it's weird to think, that stuff was the pop music comparable to our contemporary, pop music. Backstreet Boys, whatever's contemporary.
Whatever is contemporary these days, yeah. We don't even know what's contemporary anymore.
Billie Eilish.
I guess that's considered contemporary. So we were talking on Monday about some of the time you spent in India. Uh, did you say you did some meditation there and stuff like that?
Yeah, I did a bunch of meditation. Um, really enjoyed that. I was going through a really hard time at the time. You know, I was in university. Really close friend of mine killed himself, unfortunately,
Sorry
and
to hear that.
was going through some shit. And a very close family friend of ours, who is a very devout Hindu, was saying you should send him to India to meditate. And yeah, decided to go. Really enjoyed it. It helped a lot. I did it 2 summers in a row, and have traveled around India quite a bit since. That was my first time, but my family, like my parents, have been going for years. Uh, Also went to Bangladesh fairly recently.
All right.
Love Bangladesh.
I'd love to go over there and see the culture, but I wouldn't go by myself. I'd be too afraid to go by myself. Be scary.
Well, it's more fun to travel with some friends too, family.
Yeah. Um.
The India is a great place like that because everybody there speaks English.
Yeah.
Like English domestically is widely used, so you can communicate really easily, and everybody's really friendly. So if you were to go somewhere alone, it's actually not a bad spot.
Interesting. I didn't really realize that they all spoke English there. I know that a lot of them do for the tourist perspective of it, or at least that's what I assumed. Because
No, it's actually because of the English. You know, the English ruled India for 300 years, and India has like I think it's like 50 or 60 something national languages, and they're all tied to regional identities and all of these complicated domestic politics. That English ends up being the language they use to facilitate their interactions between each other.
hmm,
So their government works in English. They trade with each other in English.
interesting.
Yeah.
I didn't
So it's
realize it
it's
worked
not
like
even
that there.
about the tourism. Like they use it at home to communicate with other Indians.
Hmm. That is an interesting fact. I did not know that. Thank you for educating me,
And
Michael.
it makes it a great place to travel as someone who speaks English. You know, I went to Japan last year, and Japan's amazing, but it's a lot more difficult because street signs are in Japanese. Uh, all of the store signs are in Japanese. Nobody speaks any English. Like nobody speaks any English. So it's tough.
I think we've got a friend in the chat here, Adam's Volume. How's it going, Adam's
Hey,
Volume in the chat? I think I know who that is. Um, I've been meditating a little bit recently, just for a bit of self-reflection and trying to empower myself a little bit. So that's why I was asking about that kind of stuff. So
yeah. Meditation's good stuff. Have you ever tried active meditation?
active meditation. I can't say that I have.
It's various meditations that you do in motion. And they're really good. Sometimes just sitting and meditating still and quietly is pretty difficult. It's pretty quiet, pretty hard to quiet your mind in that situation. Might have been a little easier for people, 3,000 years ago when those techniques were first developed, but since people have come up with other stuff. The whirling dervishes, for instance, the Sufi whirling is a great meditation. You need a little space for it, but it's a lot of fun. It's good exercise, and it really fucking works.
Spinning around in circles?
Spinning around in circles.
I do that with my kids sometimes. We call it the Tornado of Souls. I usually do it when a Megadeth song comes on, actually. So
Yeah. If you, it takes a little practice. At first, you got to start really slow because you'll get nauseous and such. But after a while, you can get into it. And I did a whirling meditation a couple of times that was an hour each, just like
interesting.
whirling the whole time. And it really works. all of the like physical weirdness of sitting to try to meditate, and the itches and the uncomfort and the wanting to move and all of that stuff goes away.
Hmm. Lately, I've just been focusing. I've been told to focus on a word, and when I'm sitting still or in quieting my mind or whatever, just focus on a word, and then when you realize you're not focusing on that one word, always bring it back to that, and then just try to just keep thinking that way. That's what I've been trying so far. But I mean, this whirling thing sounds like fun. Do it for an hour. Just go
Whirling's
into
fun,
a field and spin in circles for an hour. I could do that.
right?
Sounds like fun.
Yeah, the word thing's a good one too. I mean, sometimes having something going, some sort of stimuli, like a auditory, some music or a lecture, a TV show, having that going, and having that as something that you are deliberately not focusing on, having it there, but being separate from it, acknowledging its presence, but not thinking about it, kind of helps.
I think I've heard that kind of methodology, but I feel like that would just be super hard for me. I've heard of doing it to like meditating to like droning synthesizers and stuff like that. And I feel like
Droning synths are great.
that might help me a little bit, but it
I mean,
it's just a lot of when you're focusing on nothing, it's hard to hear a steady constant, but I feel like the steady constant is what would bring you to the nothing. It's just a matter of how you sort of shift there in your mind.
yeah. I mean, it's definitely a journey. Meditation is a practice. It's not a skill, but it's something that you can
Be here now.
take on a journey, go on a journey with.
Yeah, Mark says Ram Das, be here now.
Right on.
Be here now is a big George Harrison quote, I believe, that I heard a long time ago. Just be here now.
He might have gotten that from Ram Dass.
Probably. I mean, I don't know all my teachings the way I should yet.
Town in well, there's a lot out there. I mean, it's a pretty big world of funky spirituality.
Yeah, I'm
So
still
I got
learning.
to visit the town in India where the Beatles went to explore transcendental meditation.
Oh yeah, that must have been fun.
Rishikesh.
Ah,
It was pretty cool. It's a neat place.
is it buzzing or is
It's
it like sort of like a a place where you would be expected to be able to meditate? Is it quiet there?
well, it's an Indian city, so it's crowded. There's lots of noise. Um, there are beautiful Hindu temples. A lot of people make pilgrimages up there. It's one of the more sacred points, kind of on the top of the Ganges. Ganges being one of the more sacred rivers in India. So in town, it definitely isn't quiet. I was staying a little bit out of town, and you go out of town, and it's surrounded by jungle. It's in the foothills of the Himalayas.
Hmm.
So there's like we saw like elephants and tigers roaming around the jungle and fucking gorillas swinging and shit. But yeah, you go out in the mountains about half an hour drive, and it's just these beautiful misty mountains. Great place to just quietly sit.
I'd love to go out there and just quietly sit and get eaten by a tiger. I mean, but no, I definitely I went out for a bike ride this evening just before our conversation started, and I sat for a few and just listened to the birds chirp and the wind blow. Tried to quiet my mind. I've had a lot going on recently. I was only there for maybe 5 minutes, but I felt a little better after. And the whole point. I think, you know, if it brings you to a state of mind that makes you feel a little better, then it's worth the time and it's worth the effort, you know?
Totally, totally.
And I feel in
And I
creating
mean,
anything too, it's like important to, that's what I was getting to earlier, was that it's important to take that time to yourself if you're creating anything. Because if you're not taking that time to yourself, then you're going to put all the stress or whatever that you're feeling into whatever you're creating.
totally, totally. Well, you know, I think part of the process of being a musician, when you think about the practice and the work that we put into building up these skills, that's a form of meditation in itself.
That's
And when you're
true.
just sitting there quietly going over some chords or running some scales, it is a form of meditation. And I find, you know, that often helps a lot to move my musicianship forward. You know, sitting and playing my guitar or playing my bass or playing the drums and not thinking about it so much, trying to get my body to automate those processes and for them to become second nature so that I can do more with my mind while I'm playing.
I feel like that hits me a lot too while I'm playing. If I'm playing something and I really get into it, when I stop thinking about the fact that I'm playing the guitar, that's when it starts sounding the best. That's when it starts feeling the best as well. I start moving a little bit and I can start loosening up. I'm really tense when I first pick up my instrument, and I need to loosen up a little more.
Mm.
I think one of the things that I'm doing right now to try and learn, not just music, but just in general, is building guitars, building instruments. I'm going to start with a guitar, and I'm going to move on to a bass later on. But like I was saying, I did some work on my Explorer, so I'm confident enough to know that I can do some of the work on it. But there are a few other things that I was testing out today. I was testing out flaming wood, and my product sample turned out pretty good actually. So I might
Nice.
consider doing the neck actually. But I gotta
Like
make
a
sure that
baked maple kind of thing.
yeah. Well, it's basswood, and as far as I know, basswood's pretty. It holds up pretty well against a flame. So I'm gonna look into sort of just modifying the top coat, the color of the top coat with flame, basically.
Oh, so it's more of an aesthetic modification.
Yeah.
Right on. I thought you were going for like a baked maple neck kind of thing. A lot of companies, for stability and for a slight reduction in weight, are baking their necks.
Interesting.
Like Ernie Ball's doing that these days, and apparently they sound great.
Hmm. I actually haven't heard of that.
But I love that Galaxy guitar you did. Like that thing is super cool.
Oh yeah, let me throw that over here. So I call it Nebula. Put these purple
Nebula.
Steve Vai signature DiMarzio Gravity Storm pickups in there. Got these custom purple
I didn't realize
abalone.
they were the Vi pickups.
Oh yeah,
That's
signatures.
cool.
The purple abalone UFO knobs. I had to go with the UFOs because of the space theme.
Of course.
And I mean, I think the back almost looks better. So my friend AJ from the band Words Like Wildfire, he painted this. And it was all based off of a single painting. I bought this from him at an art show that he was performing with his band at. And that's just on a canvas, like a flat canvas cardboard. And
Almost looks like a record cover or something.
almost. He does like spray painting and stuff, and he did this one, and I bought it for like $10. And it was like 3 years later that I approached him. I said, "Hey, do you think you could do this, something like this, to a guitar?" And he said, "I've never worked on a guitar before." That'll be interesting. So we approached it, and that's what we came up with, and I think it looks fucking dope. So the next one, I'm planning on staining purple. So it's gonna be a purple flying V. I have I think these Epiphone EMGs, or I don't know if they're P90s actually. Bridge pickups, Epiphone. They're there. Can you see me? It says connecting to video. We might have
Oh,
disconnected.
that's the humbucker. Sure.
Humbucker?
That doesn't look like a P90.
Okay.
I see.
I got 2 of them.
That's either a humbucker or 2 single coils.
I was told that they were humbuckers at some point in time. I don't remember when.
Yeah, those are humbuckers for sure.
They're going to be better than the ones that come with my guitar, the build that I bought. So,
you know,
we might have lost you. You cut out there.
Oh.
You back?
Hello.
Hi.
Hey.
Okay, welcome back.
Yeah, I find pickup replacements to be a huge improvement on so many production model guitars, like right up to your, Fender standards and stuff like that. I mean, to tell you the truth, even if I were to buy myself like a really nice, American Fender jazz bass or P bass these days, I'd probably still replace the pickups.
Yeah. I mean,
yeah.
As for me, the Epiphone was my only guitar at the time when I was customizing it. But during that time period, I got a Les Paul. So I was, for a while I was impartial to doing the change because I thought if I change my pickups, then I'm not going to have a guitar. But then I got the Les Paul and I was like, okay, so if I change the pickups and I fuck it up, then I still have a guitar I can work with. So it's not a big deal. So that's sort of what convinced me to look into that and start doing soldering and wiring, because I knew some basic soldering. I had some skill. No, I wouldn't say it's skill. I had some experience with it in the past, but it wasn't with guitar circuitry. So approaching guitar circuitry was a completely alien process. I had to study like diagrams and shit for a while, and then I had to find the diagram that I needed for my own guitar. And when it finally came around to installing the pickups, I got them in, but I fucked my kill switch. And I didn't know what I did. So apparently at some point in time during the installation, I ungrounded my kill switch from my pot. And for like 3 months, maybe even longer, I didn't have a kill switch. Not that it mattered because I wasn't really writing anything at the time. But it made me very sad. I have my kill switch back now because I emailed the DiMarzio tech and asked him what the hell I did wrong. And he told me that it wasn't ground properly. So now I have a working kill switch.
Nice. Never tried installing a kill switch myself, but they're definitely neat.
Yeah, I had to go through a lot of forums and shit to find the actual diagram for the potentiometer that was with the kill switch built into it. But it was because it's very specific to the model that came out in like 2011 or something like that. So it's hard to track down that diagram. I didn't exactly have it because it didn't come separately. It was built into the guitar.
Yeah. Well, DiMarzio's got a ton of diagrams out there too. So.
Yeah, well, none that included the kill switch. So I was baffled for a little while. I had to go into like forums and search through chat rooms and stuff like that to actually find the one little PDF file that it displayed it. So I wanted to ask you about working with other artists. Like, how do you go about, I don't know, recording music that you know you're not gonna have a say in?
Um, Generally, I mean, if you're talking a situation, I do a lot of recording of things like drums for other people's projects.
Yeah.
So I'll usually try to, in that situation, I'll usually try to communicate with the producer who's doing the stuff and figure out what they want, communicate with the band and the artist, figure out what they're looking for sonically. You know, usually ask for some recommendations of a couple of record, examples of the sort of sounds you're hoping to get out of the drums. Some pre-production always helps, getting them to come in and sit down, the different drums tuned, and the different microphone set to like a Glyn's Johns with the ribbon mics or something like that, and take a different slant at it. But yeah, when I'm doing it not for myself, I try to not commit too much to anything that someone, for instance, I won't throw down any hardware compressors or equalizers or anything like that going in. That way, the engineer afterwards can make those decisions themselves.
Okay.
And then there's situations where I've got, let's say, a hip hop artist who has a very firm idea, a vision of what they want their track to sound like. And that'll end up being a process of recording their vocals and then going through and treating it. And they'll, walk me through, all right, I want some delay throws here, and I want, auto tune through the hook, but not on the verses. Give me the telephone voice on the breakdown, things like that.
Yeah, I get that. I was adding some effects to some shit that I recorded the other day, and I just thought maybe I just leave this and just see what other people think if I should add anything over it. I don't have a lot of feedback to be able to get feedback right now, and because it's like you're locked in a house,
Yeah, yeah.
difficult to get it out to people that aren't your audience.
Some fresh perspective.
Yeah. We're coming up on an hour here, so in about 10 minutes I'm gonna pop them off. So we talked about your time in India. We talked about that. We talked about most of the other shit. What do you think that? Let me rephrase this. How do you think the current situation, life in general, as it's going now, going to affect the music and art that's going to come out in 2021 and 2025 and 2030?
I'd really like to see a surge of more politically active hip hop. I'm hoping there's going to be more of that. We've gone through, and not that there hasn't been that in recent years,
Mm-hmm.
uh, but it'd be nice to see more. It'd be nice to see. I mean, I anticipate there's going to be a lot more electronic music coming from this period where people have been people who previously would have maybe considered it,
Yeah.
have been forced to sit and play with their drum machines a little more.
Yeah.
But yeah, it'll be interesting. We could see more influence coming from other places, China, India, places like that. The United States, the president definitely seems to be more of an isolationist. There could be less of a cultural influence coming out of there globally in the next decade.
Yeah.
It's going to be interesting to watch it play out. That's for sure.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like when all this quarantine stuff is over, a lot of bands are gonna just try to rush back out there and get on tour because I mean everybody needs to make money, right? And
Oh
that's the
yeah.
best way for a band to make money is to get on tour. But I feel like that's going to be a lot of bands going out on tour all at once too. And
Oh yeah. I mean,
I'm sure
I
that they're
heard
going to launch.
Live Nation isn't. Okay.
Go ahead.
I heard Live Nation isn't booking any tours until 2022 at this point.
Really?
I don't
Yikes.
know if that's true or not. I got it from a reliable source. But,
Okay. Well, let's not prey on that. But I did hear that singing and dancing has been banned in the GTA. So in public spaces,
Footloose style.
singing and dancing. Like I don't know. Like oh fuck. It just bothers me that singing is banned in
Yeah.
the GTA in public areas. It's not a good look for us right now. Uh,
It's weird, but we'll get through it. And listen, at the other side, there might be a really beautiful period where independent venues, promoters, and artists who are able to respond more quickly to the reopening get out there and people start going to fucking local shows again
Yeah.
instead of paying $80 to see, $80 to hundreds of dollars to see, Rage Against the Machine or whoever.
I try to make it out to more local shows than I do big shows. And when I do get to big shows, I usually get snuck in for free, so it's not that big a deal.
Nice.
But yeah, I feel like a lot of the like with all this quarantine going on and all the bands needing to get out, they're all going to be working on something behind the scenes or something. So they're all going to have that little snippet ready to release right when they go out. So there's going to be a big surge of stuff that's going to come out just before.
I mean, there are
everybody
going to be
hits
some
the road
cool
again.
homemade B-sides for sure.
That's true too. Yeah, like whole albums made in isolation, just demos and stuff like that. But no, I definitely feel like the way the world is going to have a big effect on everything that comes out of it from now on. And I don't feel like a presidential election or a change in presidency is going to fix that either. So it's going to take a long time to feel the way that it, used to.
Things will definitely be different, but at the same time, I was watching a documentary on the Spanish flu of 1918, specifically on the aftermath of that, and how there was sort of this cultural trend of just forgetting about it. Like we learn about the First World War and the Second World War in school, but generally before now, people weren't really thinking of the Spanish flu a whole lot. It was a pretty minor footnote in history when really it was like they were doing lockdowns and quarantines. Lots of people died. It was a significant happening, but people tried to move on with their lives, and part of that was sort of forgetting about the quarantine, forgetting about the pandemic.
I feel like it would have been wise to, remember that. I've been saying a lot lately. We need to forget the past and move on from it and just focus on now and how we can be better for the future, but focusing on now. But if you apply that to what happened and you say we did forget about the Spanish flu of 1918, and look what happened. We forgot about it. We forgot about the past, and now we're here. So
Yeah.
we can't necessarily forget completely about the past because it is important that we right the wrongs of history. And
I'm not advocating we forget about it. I was just saying
I know.
You might be surprised how quickly we forget about it as a culture.
Yeah, that is a true fact. I mean, it was a trend back then to just sort of forget about it, right? Because you didn't want to think about it. And that's why you just didn't talk about it. Anyway, Mikey, thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Where can people find you if they want to find you? Social media links or anything?
I've got a Facebook for Leadfoot Studio. There's a Facebook for Adam and the Volumes and No Pussyfooting as well. I'm rebranding the new studio, so I think I'm going to call it just the address.
The address.
Not the address, but the address of the
The
place.
address of the place. Okay. That might be interesting.
1176.
Neat. Okay. So we might change it from Leadfoot to 1176. Okay.
I might.
All right. Well,
Yeah, thanks, man.
thank you for being my guest today. It's been a pleasure to have you. And keep me posted on that Adam and the Volume stuff, because I do want to hear
Will do.
that new stuff and any other stuff you got boiling up. Just so you know, I'm going to end the stream and I'll stay on with you for a minute, though.
Cool.
All right. Thanks to anybody who stopped by. I'm just going to share it at my socials and my merch in chat. That's stuff that happens. It's down at the bottom for my YouTube page. Yeah. Thanks for being here. Thanks for watching. Subscribe if you want to. Don't subscribe if you don't want to. We'll see you later. Check out No Pussyfooting also on Bandcamp. There you go. See you later.